This is the CHRILLCAST. I'm Chris.
Will.
And I'm Chad the Gaming Dud. Chad the Gaming Dud. I'm Chad the Gaming Dad. I'm your judge. I was trying to say judge and dad at the same time. That's what happens. But I will be your judge on this episode.
Judge, jury, and executioner. All right, so today's Face-Off Friday topic is, are games getting too big / open world, or are they just right? I guess we'll figure out today. Chad will decide whether it's too big or not. That's a weird way to phrase that, I guess.
I'm not even going to go there. But
we'll just call that. So basically, Chad, to start this off, you're going to tell us who's going first.
You are.
I am. Oh no. I'm going to say the games are getting way too big, and I'm sick of it. So, Will, what are you saying?
I guess I'm going to say games are not getting too big, and I'm not sick of it.
I mean, you do love Breath of the Wild.
I do love Breath of the Wild.
So it's just
one of my favorite games of all time, actually.
So, all right. So we have made our initial case, I guess, our points, whatever the heck you want to call it. So now Will and I are going to make our case, and you'll have an opportunity to ask each of us one question after we make our case. And then at the end of this, we'll go in opposite order to do our closing argument. So Will get to go second during the making of the case and first during closing arguments. And then once we finish that all out, you will make a judgment. Does that make sense?
Yes, I will.
And we are able to make objections for points that make no sense or have no context to this argument. So if Will says, I object, which he does on occasion, and I never
do all the time. You have to object like this.
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely do it.
Okay.
If he says I object, you get to choose whether it's sustained or overruled. So you get to choose whether it's removed from the case or in the case.
I feel like you need to take notes. Okay.
Anyway, so that's it. That's basically it. Adam Corlick introduced that rule, which was
You also don't have to ask us questions.
You don't. Most of the time,
most judges don't.
Most of the time, Will makes the better case, and they don't ask him questions. So, but then I win. But then I win.
One time I didn't get a question. Usually it's like, your argument sucks, and here's why. It's like, that wasn't even a question.
All right, so here we go.
All right.
I think that given the amount of time I have to play games from now, I guess I liked retro games more because I could play more of them when I bought them. Nowadays, every game's open world, and not every game needs to be open world. I mean, look at the original Halo games. Halo 1, albeit semi-open world for some of the games, you could choose different paths, still followed a linear formula, and it's still considered one of the greatest games of all time. How many open world games are considered the greatest games of all time? Far less than the linear games. Halo 1, 2, 3, a perfect trilogy. Halo 4, Halo 5, albeit not as good, but still good, are still linear. Halo Infinite, open world, has people a little nervous. And for good reason. A lot of games have gone open world, and it works for some and it doesn't work for others. It may work for Halo, but it's got people nervous. Fable's about to go open world. Assassin's Creed went open world. Zelda went open world. How many games need to be open world before we start getting the hint that not everything needs to be open world? I stopped playing Assassin's Creed when it went open world because there's too much stuff to do. I get really lost. Red Dead Redemption 2, Cowboy Western Simulator. A lot of people say Red Dead Redemption 1 was better. I don't know if you do, but I do. I think 1 was better because there wasn't too many choices. Too many choices actually makes me feel limited because I have too many choices to make, so I make no choices. And then I put the game away and I don't play it for years and then come back to it like 5 years later. Too many choices is bad, in my opinion. Less choices means I can actually get through a game and enjoy it. Too many choices, I don't make a choice at all, and then I end up not playing it. So that's my first thing. My second thing is that open world is kind of a cheap way to make a game longer. Just because you have an open world doesn't mean the game's better. Doesn't mean longer game does not equal better game, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And a lot of game devs get lazy and just make an open world by generating a bigger landscape and then just filling it with fetch quests. Can you imagine if they took a game like, let me think of a good one. Or just for example, can you imagine if Halo 1 was open world back in the day when they had it on the Xbox? It would not look nearly as good. It'd be too big for the game to process it, or the system to process it well, so they'd have to fill it with a lot of open voids. And I don't think it would be as good if they did it with the original Halo. And they are getting too big because there's no way I can finish 10 games from this gen in the same amount of time I could finish 10 games from the N64, GameCube, and even the Super Nintendo era, the NES era. It's just too big. You can't play as many games. It's really unfortunate. So, and they fill up your whole hard drive. So you don't want. I mean, too many of these big open games, you end up with, like you've said in your videos, too many hard drives, not enough games. So
I have quite a collection of hard drives now. It's great. Love it.
Love it. So that's my final part of my making the case. So do you have any questions for me?
No, I think you said things pretty well there. Are there any? Would you say that some games have benefited from open world? You said just because it's open world doesn't make it better, but do you think that sometimes certain ones were made better for being bigger?
I can't think of any game that would be worse if it were smaller than what it currently is. Shorter, you could make an argument for a shorter game being worse, but making a game smaller in the landscape, I don't think that would ever make a game bad. I don't think the size of the game, it's more the filler content you have when a game gets too big. And a lot of games that go open world get too big for their britches, and then you end up with a lot of filler content that nobody wants. So, no, I don't think that. Yes, I do think games get too big, but I don't think a game can be too small.
All right. I guess we're on to Will.
All right. So I'm just going to counter some of Chris's arguments instead of trying to be unique and come up with my own stuff. All right. So the reason why I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing to go open world, a lot of these titles that were previously linear are going open world, is that they're actually fulfilling the original plan and dream of the developers. So Zelda here playing in the background. The original Zelda was relatively open for the time. You can do dungeons in different order. And when they were designing this game, they actually had that original design in mind, where they're trying to make it where you can basically do things out of order. You can explore a lot more, and you're not stuck in this linear path. And the funny thing is, with like the Zelda formula, a lot of that came from the limitation of the hardware, which is no longer a limitation. So the developers for this game thought, why maintain that formula that really was only put in place because of the limitations? Unfortunately, people were really in love with that structure, so it didn't go over super well for some people. But for a newcomer to the series, this was a great introduction to Zelda for me. And the open world was very appealing to me, and I thought they did a great job of filling it in with things to do, and it wasn't open and bland, which I know Chris is one of Chris's arguments. Many of the Ubisoft games are like that, where it's very open, but it's just not filled in. So done right by the right developer, I think an open world game is pretty great. Another thing with Halo, how it's going semi-open world, where you'll have these open sections that you can go back and revisit, kind of like a Metroidvania game. Again, that was the original vision for Halo, the very first Halo. You can see that in some missions like the Silent Cartographer, and then the whole back half of the game, you actually backtrack through what you've already done. And although that was partly due to limitations, it's also part of was the original plan, was to have more of an open world game and have you backtrack to find secrets. And that's something now that they can fulfill because the hardware is powerful enough. And then Chris is saying that it's a bad thing to have too many choices and having too much to do. And although I understand the argument, because I do think a lot of games can get, when it gets up to 100 hours to actually finish the main story, it's kind of ridiculous because it's not something you can pick up and go. Having a lot of choices and actually being able to explore, if there's a good save file system where you can save your progress, like no matter where you are in the world, it's actually pretty great because you can pick up to play 20 minutes, and like Zelda's a great example of this. Pick up 20 minutes, you can go cook some potions, you can go and complete a couple of the shrines, and then not even touch the main story within those 20 minutes and still feel like you've actually accomplished something. Whereas with the linear story, sometimes you will, play 30 minutes and feel like nothing's actually been accomplished. And then, especially if it has a really punishing save point system, you end up losing all of that progress when you go back to it. I feel that way with some of the older Zelda games where I end up having to restart a dungeon several times because I can't get through it the first time, so I can have to go all the way to the very beginning and then walk all the way through the rooms again to figure out where I was. Whereas in this game, I don't have that problem because, you know, I don't necessarily have to start a dungeon if I only have 20 minutes. I can go do something else. Let's see, what are some of the other points that you made? I think that's it. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have more options. I like having the open world system. Oh, another one, Fable. Again, they're fulfilling the promise that they originally made of it being open world. So like a lot of these games that are going open world, I don't think every game should be, but a lot of them that are going open world, it's just because they're fulfilling the original plan that the developers had. And I'm very excited to see what they can do with that. And yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not even going to touch the gigabyte thing.
Yeah, the extra hard drives.
Yeah,
so
that's the crushing blow to my argument. I already know, so I'm not going to even address it.
Yeah, well, I mean, even the single player stuff going forward is going to require a lot of space, probably. So, or I mean, the linear stuff, not just single player. But all right, so I asked Chris kind of something to contradict himself. So I'm going to ask you sort of the same thing. Of all the open world games that you like, you ever wish that one of them or a few of them maybe weren't quite so open world?
Yeah, like I was saying with a lot of the Ubisoft games, just those ones can get too big and they get bland. So sometimes where it's like, I really didn't feel this way with Zelda because I feel like wherever you went, you found a new secret. Some of those games, you go and you just find a tree. That's all that's over there. So it's like, why did I walk all the way over this area when there's actually nothing there? Yeah, so some games can be very bland.
Okay. Yeah, both good arguments. I don't have any objections to either.
All right, well, you gotta make your closing argument.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of games are going open world now just because when developers originally envisioned these games, they had open world in mind, and because the hardware is powerful enough to actually, you know, bring that vision to life, they're doing it to various, you know, scales of success. But I think a lot of them have benefited from it, and I look forward to some more of my favorite childhood games going this way.
Okay.
All right.
Yours.
My closing argument. So, being a bigger game just for the sake of being bigger, which a lot of these devs have done, even if it is true to the original vision of the developer, it doesn't make the game better. And a lot of times having a game be so big, it's more to drive people to keep playing the game well past when they should be, and maybe buy microtransactions in the midst of all that, especially Ubisoft games. But my real issue is I want to play more games, not more of the same game. And open world has not allowed me to do that. It makes me have to keep coming back to a game well past when I normally would play it, and I never feel like I can actually complete the game. So, like, for example, Breath of the Wild, I don't feel like I'll ever actually complete this game to the fullest anyway. Like, I'll never be like the completionist and get 900 Korok seeds, right? There's just too much to do. And for me, feeling like it feels like I don't get closure to the game because I'm never going to get to a point where I feel like I'm done with it. And that's a little depressing. So I try to stick to games that I can actually finish, games that don't take up my entire hard drive of my Xbox One or my PS4. And I think that devs all making their games open world means that no game sticks out. When was the last time a game that was great that wasn't open world stuck out to you? I'd give you 10 minutes to try and find one. But for example, Ori and the Blind Forest is not open world. It's more Metroidvania style, and that works, and it's not too big. Cuphead, not too big, sticks out, really great game. Those are unique. Open world is no longer unique, and the open worlds are getting bigger and bigger and more bland. And although Breath of the Wild is beautiful to look at, I still prefer playing the older Zelda games that were linear, and I could get from start to finish without having to make a bajillion choices that I don't want to make. So that's it.
All right. Well, I am prepared to make my judgment.
So,
if you're prepared to hear it, I'll give it.
Absolutely.
All right. So for a minute there, I was thinking it was going to be kind of a tie because I agree with some points for both of you. However, I agree more points with Chris. So I'm going to have to give him the win.
Okay.
Pointing this way. Yeah.
There you go.
So the reason why is I also love a good open world game, and I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima now, and that game looks amazing and everything. And I like the fact, like what Will said, is where you can save anywhere. I can go in and just do one thing, save, and get out, and that's fine. But I sure would have probably liked that game more if it was more focused with the story, because I love a good story. On a previous episode this week, we talked about my favorite game, Yakuza. It appears open world when you first look at it, but it's only about, it's a small section of a city. It's not like you can just go forever. And actually, as you play through the games, you play the same section of the city in each game. It's the same part of like the red light district of Japan in Tokyo. But after a while, you get to know, you don't even have to look at the map. You live there. You now know where to go. And that's not because it's a giant open world. It's because it's like you're living in your own little town and you know how you go and everything. So in that one, if you stick to the story, it's very linear. Breath of the Wild, I think I've played, probably like 30 hours of that thing. I'm nowhere near done with it. And like you, I will never finish that as much as I'd like to. 30 hours is almost as much as I play on any game, period. I finished every Halo because you can go straight through and just finish it. When I play Call of Duty and this and that, I play the story mode, and I'm in, I'm out, and it's, even if it's 6 hours, 5 hours, if it was good, talk about like, what is it, Titanfall 2. Short and sweet.
That was an amazing game.
Great game, great single player for the linear story part. And yeah, you got your multiplayer and everything, but I'll go back and play that again just because it was really good. So I like the sense of a start, a middle, and an end, and then you get to the end and you're like, yeah. Even if it was hard and you finally beat it, you're like, boom, got it. Where the open worlds, like you said, especially with Ubisoft, wanting to constantly, I mean, how many times can you go find the bucket of water again? And it's the exact same graphic. They don't even change it. It's the same model, same bucket, same everything, and you do it again and again. I do play some of those because I like the setting. Valhalla looks good because I like Viking stuff, and I'll want to play it for a while, but I'll never finish that either. So I would like things to get a little smaller, and that's part of the reason why I'm backing away from some of the new consoles, is because everybody seems to want to just, it's a fad. It's like the flavor of the month, but it's a long month because everybody's doing these open world games. If you don't have an open world, let's face it, there's a lot of people online on the internet that they're like, what? This thing isn't 100 hours? They expect me to pay $60 and it's only like 10 hours long? If they're the best 10 hours you ever played, that's worth it. Instead of, like you said, with the filler, there's a lot of filler. But like you said, there are some games that are open world that, if that's the vision that like Miyamoto had, the vision of Zelda going into the woods and looking in caves and things, and that's what he could do here, I can appreciate that. But I also would probably like it to be a little shorter and smaller, like you said, in scope. So that's why I'd give you the win, but I do see a lot of the points for both of you. So that's my 2 cents. Probably a lot more than 2 cents, but I get that way sometimes.
Here's an argument I actually meant to make and I forgot to, just for fun. I was going to say the older Zeldas are like the Lord of the Rings, and Breath of the Wild is like the Hobbit. It's longer, but why?
That's a funny comparison, but I still really like Breath of the Wild. I think
It's a good
part of
game.
it is because it was my first 3D Zelda.
I like
played.
the Hobbit, but
Wow.
Did it need to be 9 hours?
Absolutely not. No.
I mean, we were talking on earlier episodes this week about Demiko and how it's going to be simple and fun. And if you want to say it like Gandalf, you just go, keep it simple, keep it fun. And then it's more, and then you can have a better time with it, you know?
You go.
And I'm down for that. I mean, I like some big games too. I mean, I'm not gonna want to play things like Red Dead Redemption, but I haven't really played it that much because I started, like, man, this is really cool. It looks like really awesome. And then it lost me. There's no hook. It doesn't pull you in as much unless you choose to focus only on the story missions. You start going other places, it loses you, and then you're off to something else.
Here's the hook: the testicles are like actually react to the temperature on the horses.
I
forgot about that.
I heard about that. Well, now I gotta go play it again.
Yeah, I know,
Jeez.
exactly. It's like,
I gotta
have
find
to
this
see
out.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, Chad, it's been a blast having you on here,
Thank you so
and
much.
I hope that you had a blast as well.
Sure did. Thank you.
And any of you guys that have watched this entire podcast, and you haven't subscribed to Chad yet, you're doing yourself a disservice. Go subscribe to Chad the Gaming Dad's YouTube channel. Get him to that 2,000 subscriber mark, and go watch, what was it, Tuber Tuesday, where we discussed what you're going to do at 2,000 subscribers?
Yeah, we were talking about the world premiere that you guys had here, where I'm going to do my 2,000 subscriber special. I'm planning is going to be
Hold
taking
on.
a look
We
back.
want them to go watch the Tuesday video.
Okay, well, okay, well,
Okay, no, that's fine.
They already maybe saw that, but it'll have something. It might have something to do with my favorite episodes I've done up to this point. Yeah,
There you
maybe.
go.
I don't know. You'll have to wait and see.
So if at least 10% of you, 50 of you guys, go and subscribe to Chad the Gaming Dad, you will find out what his 2,000 subscribers all about. So, anyways, had a lot of blast. Had a lot of fun having Chad on the podcast.
We've been on a long time. We've all had a lot of blast. So
Yeah,
it's
100%. And this is actually the longest one, so you set the record.
oh boy, that's because I just don't know how to zip it. And we had Tommy on, who
It was
talk
Tommy.
as well. So
Yeah, exactly.
you got double trouble here with you. Yeah.
As always, I'm Chris,
Well,
and I'm gonna
Chad.
let. Oh, sorry.
Thanks
Go ahead.
again for having me on and everything. I did have a great time. It was awesome.
I was gonna say I'm gonna let Chad sign this one off, and then I forgot you hadn't said your name yet. So when I say "and we will see you," you'll say the line Will always says. So ready?
Okay.
And we will see you
On the next CHRILLCAST. Is that what he says?
Exactly. You got it.
Good.
And Will,
Good,
you
I'm
should say bye, guys. Still.
yeah. Bye, guys.
You guys.